What better way to kick off my reviews for 1.43 than, of course, with the Evo, the car which for many of us is probably the standout of these four. Certainly it was the one which, alongside the previously added LFA and the C8 Stingray, was one of the consistently requested cars from the community, even more so, from what I saw at least, than the Evo VIII. And this particular version, of course, the 2006 MR GSR, is a vehicle which falls into the exact same category as, for some reason, something which the Evo always seems to fall into. Some of you mentioned this, I kind of alluded to it as well in my review for the update as a whole, and that is for some weird reason. Even the games like Gran Turismo, Forza, various others, that do treat the Evo with a lot of respect, strangely, don't allow the engine to be tuned anywhere near as much as it should be. And a similar thing actually happens even in Japanese games to Japanese cars which should have way more horsepower. Skylines and Supras also suffer from the same kind of issues. Now maybe they're trying to avoid seeming like they're pandering too much to the JDM market or to JDM cars and making them too OP, but the reality is they can produce that kind of power, so it's not entirely fair to restrict them so heavily. Especially in the case of something like an Evo, this one, fully tuned, is up around 550 horses, which is no slouch. You know, what it can do with that is very impressive, and in the future we could well see an engine swap of some kind arrive. The Evo X, for example, can be tuned to over 1,000 horses with the Escudo swap. But as any Evo owner will attest to, you shouldn't need to do that. One of the main things that JDM fans love is the purity of tuning their original engine. They are proud of those engines, and they're proud of what those engines can do. So, especially for a Japanese creator like Polyphony, it seems a bit weird to me that these cars are so neutered compared to what they should be capable of. This should be at least a 700-800 horsepower car fully tuned, but it isn't for some odd reason. Now, whatever the reason may be, this is what we have to work with. So in standard form, you're looking at 277 horses, just over 1,400 kilos, it's 1,420, of course, four-wheel drive, turbo aspirated, and the price tag, as I mentioned before, is 100 grand. The point level, just over 500, 509.6, so technically just below 510, and even stock, as of course, if you're watching this video near to the time of the car's addition, you can of course still use the vehicle in a time trial event online to get a feel before you buy it, if you will. It's not exactly expensive anyway in the grand scheme of Gran Turismo 7, but you can try it before you buy, if you will, around the Red Bull Ring. And it's a pretty damn good car already to use, which is exactly what you'd expect from an Evo. And I will say one of the things that I quite like is that even though the Evo that I had was of course many years older than this, mine was a 2002 Evo 7 GTA with the Tiptronic box, even with that kind of separation between the two cars, I can still see and feel some very reminiscent handling and suspension movements which reminded me of how my real car handled. And I'm sure for those who have Evos, maybe a 7, 8, 9, whatever the case may be, you've probably had a similar experience, because I think they've done a pretty damn good job of representing what this should feel like in the game and how it should corner. There's a little bit of duck and dive and some slight body roll, but there's something that's almost difficult to describe about an Evo, because it does have body roll, but it's in a way that almost feels like it's helping you. It's very strange to describe unless you've actually experienced it, but the car does kind of lean into a corner, but it almost feels like it leans in a motorcycle kind of way. Like it leans into the corner almost instead of away from it. It almost seems to defy physics in certain ways. And of course, it's not surprising from something that was so good for rallying, as many other rally cars would be fantastic on the road as well, that carries through here as well. So hats off to them. I haven't driven an Evo 9, but if my Evo 7 compared to this was anything to go by, then yeah, it should feel that good. Now, fully tuned, you're on a different wavelength now. The one I'm driving in this video, of course, is fully modified with those racing hard tyres, and you can see it is ballistic. The one thing I will say that you need to be cautious of with this one, I'm running, for example, a 50-50 split as far as grip goes, and even with that, this is a car which you need to be careful of over crests. Here at the Nürburgring, for example, when you start to get a little bit airborne and kind of bouncing from curb to curb, especially on some of the corners toward the latter half of the lap, well, those are the kind of times when the car can become a little bit unstable. You'll start to feel the weight shift over the front end instead of the back. You'll have a little bit of a rear end lift, even with the downforce, and it can become a bit unstable then under braking. Or if once or twice, as I did, you catch one wheel, for example, on the grass, and it can become a little bit unstable, but even then, true to what you would hope an Evo would be like, it's surprisingly easy to get it back in line, and sometimes it almost feels like the car just does it itself. Overall, there's nothing that's really revolutionary about this car, but much like the Lexus LFA, it's a car which people have wanted to come back, and aside from the strange limitations on power, it is a car which does exactly what you'd hope it would do. It's ballistically quick, great to drive, semi-forgiving. It is forgiving to a certain degree, but of course you still need to treat it with respect, as any fast car does, but it is a joy to work with. If you were really hoping for the Evo IX to come back, I think you'll love it. The Evo VIII, of course, is still due to arrive at some point, for fans of that one as well. The Evo, as always, it's not really the kind of car that I have any hot takes on. It just does what you'd expect it to do. It's a great addition, or a great return, I guess more specifically, and I do find that I like this car in this game more than I did in GT6, and I think that might be a case of having less options, because when you have less cars to choose from, you tend to use each of them probably more often and savour them a bit more. And I'm not saying that that's a better thing. Sure, it's great to appreciate every car, but choice is still a nice thing to have. So for me at least, I do like the Evo IX more in this game than in GT6, and the visual upgrades are pretty damn nice too. As some noticed, of course, and I showed this on screen in my review for 1.43, the wide body does dictate some differences in the aero package, in particular the front bumper, and I believe a slight difference in the side skirts as well that will change depending on if you fit the wide body or not. There are a couple of other cars that have that as well, but I do like that. Everything across the board is what you'd expect. Fully tuned, like I said, over 550 horsepower. The weight is down around 1100 kilos instead of 1400, so not a massive drop, but still pretty damn good. And of course the point level absolutely skyrockets up to the 700 plus region, exactly as you'd expect. That's it for my thoughts though. I would love to hear yours down below. Are you happy that the car's here? Are you already using it for stuff? I'm sure plenty are, either road or rally. And of course, if you are maybe disappointed by it, perhaps because of the power limitations, drop that down below as well. And of course stick around on the coming days on the channel, because I will be reviewing each of the other cars as well. But for now, thanks for watching.